Network here on a Tuesday, and you know what that means. Of course, we're joined by Dr. Pierce, our injury insider, brought to you by the Michigan Sport and Spine Center. Doc is on the road. I believe he's in Nashville. Is that right, Doc? You're in Nashville?
That's right, Nashville. Loving the Music City. It's kind of a busy week for me. I'm sporting the Michigan State team, the only team that won over the weekend. My son's lacrosse. We played against Purdue on Saturday and Indiana on Sunday, and we got a 12-9 win against Purdue and a 17-7 against Indiana. So
go green.
There you go, Spenny.
Go green.
Lacrosse school.
Yeah, you're a lacrosse school, man. You guys are back up.
Yep.
Dr. Pierce's son's doing his part for you. He did that for you. I heard, Doc, did he in the post-game media session dedicate that victory to Spencer Raxter? I heard that he did.
He actually did Spencer's shout out and then all of Woodward sports because of the love he gets from the team. So
Shout out.
You're
Appreciate
well recognized. I don't know what social media outlet it was on, but it's there if you look hard.
Yeah, there you go. Doc, great to catch up with you as we always do. There was some Lions news, and I know there's a couple things obviously that we want to touch on. But there was some Lions news. Dan Campbell talked about. This is non-money contract related. This is actually more of Doc's wheelhouse here. I know there was some Lions news in that Dan Campbell addressed how the Lions plan to practice in training camp and et cetera. Eric Woodward talked about it, said that they would eliminate the joint practices, said that they were counterproductive, feels that he could have got more from extra practice. He said he may play starters more in the preseason. And Doc, look, as long as you and I have talked, since the beginning of my time here and your time here at Woodward Sports, you've always mentioned that to where the practices and the training camps for the Lions are a little more rigorous, I guess, than maybe the average NFL team. I guess, Doc, in the end, Dan Campbell and the Lions Brain Trust kind of exploring maybe some other options that maybe they want to change the tone, I guess, of training camp and preseason?
Yeah, I mean, we've said it, we've talked about it. I've always tried to speak from a glass half full. But you've got to start recognizing the hits, the micro trauma that goes on with fold-out tackle. I mean, I know he got called out by San Francisco, at the end of the last season. What's the cause of this? St. Brown, hey, doesn't everybody work out like this? I think he's just trying to take note. But in his defense, and I supported it, is that if we're ready, if we're more game ready, if we're hitting harder and we're doing things harder, then is that better? And he proved out we won a lot of games, but we weren't there in the end. Is there wear and tear factor? I think right now he's starting to take a step back. Let's take a better look at this. Let's see how we protect our players a little bit more. Let's not worry so much about what they're doing. Let's worry more about what we're doing. And I think that's what's going to come about. And it's a maturity level of Dan Campbell, too. I mean, he's becoming he's not a 20-year head coach and knows all the answers. I think he had to prove to himself, prove to the Lions, prove to this tough Lions Detroit attitude, the blue-collar grit. Let's dial it back a little bit and see if we can get sophisticated blue-collar grit. So we'll call it the sophisticated mindset of our blue-collar grit. Maybe we'll try to coin that. It doesn't roll that quickly, but I think that's really what we're looking at, is to be a little bit smarter, a little more educated. We're all maturing, including Dan Campbell and the way he looks at stuff. And we got hindsight now. So I think you guys see a smarter, mature approach to the practice and start using some of the sports science and some of the medical a little bit more proactively.
Yeah, talking about that.
Long-winded answer to that.
No, Doc, that's fine because it leads, I think, very well to the next question. And I was trying to think of a way to phrase this because you brought up the sports science of it. And that was something where when we have talked about this in the past, that was where you drew your basis and your conclusions of. I guess this is going to be a weird question. And it's almost akin to, and this is almost akin to pitchers. I've heard people talk about the fact, does a pitcher have a finite number of pitches in his body? I guess, is there like a finite number of hits that a football player can take and maybe they do that maybe they make changes to the training camp regimen based on that feeling or based on that protocol? Or is that more of a feel thing where you're applying the data? Oh my God, we're the most banged up team in the league every single year. We have to change something. Is it a mix of both? Is it an act of desperation? What is it, do you think?
It's more of an act of both. You can't ignore the statistics. What the game has not gone to, it's gone from I feel this is right to what do the analytics show? What are the numbers showing? We have so much data from just on the field hits. Everything is tracked. The quickness, the push, the rushing of the player. How quick he gets out of the pocket. Everything. So it's not just sports science, it's mechanical numbers. So yes, when we say a pitcher shouldn't pitch over 100 counts, that's on the average. Can there be situations? Where are we at in the playoffs? Where are we at in the season? Where are we at here? With Gibbs, I'm worried about Gibbs this year because he's going to take a lot more snaps. There's going to be a lot more pressure on him. So he's somebody to look out for. You got to move the ball around a little bit more. Yes, it's percentages. The more touches you get, the more chances you are at potentially getting injured. The micro traumas, the guys throwing their bodies into it because they're trying to make the team, or young guys trying to prove themselves. They should be able to take the hits and bounce back, but we're seeing that that's not necessarily true. And we also got to look at the balance, the way they're training, the way their muscle balance is, hamstring injuries, little things that are happening. Like, what are we doing in our training? Are we overtraining the muscles that it can't take good physiologic attention on the joint itself? So there's a lot of science that goes into it. And I think Dan Campbell's forced now to take a look at those numbers. I don't want to be the most banged up team to, what it would be, 3 years running. You can't be, because you do get looked at. So there isn't a specific, and it really comes down to, like I say, the way the body's built. Guys that are like Hutchinson, he's very powerful, but he's actually thin from the knee down. What does that mean? Does he have more risk for ankle injuries, lower extremity injuries? We can tease it down to things like that. But as far as pure prevention, we're never going to get there. But I think if we create a safer environment, is really what I want to say. Create that safe environment, even though it's a game of football, which is, again, 70-mile-an-hour collisions all day long. I think it's going to be a more sophisticated blue grit collar that we're going to see out of the Detroit Lions this year.
Doc, you're talking about prevention. I want to talk about aftercare. You have guided many amateur and professional athletes back from injury, back to their teams, back to great success. We're watching a young man in Jaden Ivey right now on the heels of a catastrophic leg break, truly breaking down as a human being right now. How often are you encountering these situations where an injury is too much for the man?
I always talk about mental toughness. I mean, if the medical science is there, the mental toughness needs to be, overcome. What's your attitude? Where are you? Are you committed? Are you committed to the rehab program? Because there's processes. People don't realize there's healing processes. It doesn't just like, boom, I'm hurt today. 6 months later, I'm all better. There's a process of healing. And if you don't follow each stage, and we really did it well with Hutchinson, not giving myself that much credit, but we went through the stages of recovery. That's the same thing with Ivy. I don't think he went through the proper stages. I think he kind of like blew off a stage. Some of these young guys like, I'll heal no matter what. No, when you're at that elite level, you have to go through the process. And the process of healing, there's natural physiological healing. And if you skip a step, or you're slow on a step, or I went soft on this, or I'm like mentally defeated because of my brain scarring from that, all those things are playing a role. And I hate to say, we're kind of seeing two different spectrums here from the Hutchinson recovery and his recovery. And these are good examples to young athletes. And who are you? And you're also dealing with a mental different mental capacities, where you're coming from. I just, I can compare it to football players. I can compare it to people returning to work from being. I mean, it plays a role everywhere. What your attitude is, how it's presented to you, is the playbook right there? Do I have confidence? Like McCarty always talks about. I had confidence in the team that I spoke to, and I just followed the book. I'm not. Darren's like, I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I know how to recognize the smartest guy in the room and follow their lead. I mean, he had Eiserman and all those guys as great role models. Same thing here. I don't. It's just a combination of a few different things. You're 10% off each time. That adds up. If you're 110% each time, like Hutchinson did, you're back and you're signing a big ass contract. I mean, it plays a role. It's just like with all of us. I hurt myself and now I'm still dealing with it 2 years later. You didn't do the right thing, but you're also not getting paid millions of dollars to do it. You're going to work, things like that. So I think I answered your question with the direction you were going, but let me know.
Very well.
Doc, you got time for one more? We were talking about collisions, and for some reason I thought of Tiger Woods for a minute.
I wonder why.
Yeah. But Doc, I mean, just kind of your thoughts on that. Like, we're noticing a pattern here, obviously, with what he does. And I guess the simple answer is, get a driver. You're a billionaire athlete, get a driver. And he actually addressed that and said, he has privacy concerns with hiring drivers and stuff like that, and people knowing where he is. And like, Doc, like, it kind of goes back to me, where, look, I see it, and I kind of equate this to mine and my wife's relationship, right? Like, where I see my wife is a school teacher. She has to be in charge of 28 or 30 kids, and she has to have control of that environment, or it doesn't work.
Right.
You know what I mean? Tiger, exactly. I would guess, high-performing athlete, has to be in control of everything, comes from a sport where you are literally the only one in control of you, into a life where you're a billion-dollar corporation, control that you have. Is that what this is, Doc? Is there an underlying problem to this, in your opinion?
So, I have a lot of love for Tiger Woods. I have a lot of respect for what the man's done and what he's come back from. You can talk medical with all his injuries, for hours. But when we look at it, I got phone calls and I got asked, like, what the heck? Why is he, is he that stupid? Can he do it again? Why is he repeating it? First of all, the guy's under a microscope. Yes, the simple answer is get a driver, get somebody personable. I deal with a lot of entertainers that live a very, very private life, as much as Tiger Woods or anybody else. They know how to kind of keep it under the wrap. I mean, one of my good friends, he was the bad boy of Detroit for a long time. You've got to have systems in place. You've got to have people to trust. He's got to have a circle. You bring up a good point that he's in a sport where it's just him. I can only trust me to get the job done. It's not a team event. But I hate to tell you, but golf has turned into a team event. It's my trainer. It's my coach. It's my swing coach. He's got a nutritionist. He has a team with him now. So that, I'm not going to call him out, but he can get by that whole my personal life thing. You've got to be able to have a handful of people that you trust. And yeah, is the world hard to trust right now? But I want to get to one point. With Tiger, you don't understand. He's that good because of an addiction. And I'm simplifying it. He's got an addictive personality. It doesn't just end with golf. It's every part of his life. I micromanage, like you're saying. Can he trust anyone else? He's an addict. He's an addict. He had issues with, not calling him out on the women thing, but
right.
That's his personality. That's what he knows. That's how he functions from a daily basis. We can't put ourselves. I learned a long time ago. You can never put yourself, when they say put yourself in his shoes, you can never do that. You don't know what all the things that are going on in his head, just like I can't put my your shoes on, because the way you were brought up, you just had different stories, different parts of your life that took you into a certain path. And Tiger having that mistake again, It's very unfortunate. I feel I can explain it from a medical standpoint. As far as common sense has to play a role here. He's not utilizing it. Hopefully, this will be the time he does. How do you? I don't have a good explanation of glass half full to get him out. But I just want to say it's just like with football players. We want them to have that aggressive mentality, but it doesn't automatically stop as soon as you take your jersey off. Some of that you're still hot. You're still wired that way. He's wired a certain way to be very controlling, in control, but also addictive. When he gets into something, he's an addict about it. He's a fanatic about it, and that's why he's as great as he is. But also, there's a double-edged sword to it, and we're starting to see that other side of the. I don't want to say the devil, but there's a devil there that's bothering him. So, all respect to him. Get a driver. Hopefully, we can see him at the Masters. I'm not sure. Has any of that come out yet? I don't even know. Has he come out for the Masters?
No, I haven't heard any updates to that. So certainly we'll keep a lookout for that.
I know we wanted to talk a little bit about auto injuries and what we do at Sports and Spine, but yeah, I mean, as far as there's certain stuff that we could help from that aspect, and for auto accidents, for real issues. That's what we do. That's our bread and butter at Michigan Sports and Spine. And, Tiger needs help. We're like I said, our doors are open. My phone's on. We have an indirect contact to him. I reached out years ago, and he kind of said, thank you, but no, I got a team out here.
All right.
So
well, Doc, you're our team.
Cool.
You're our team here at Woodward, man. We appreciate you.
Oh, real quick, I got to do a shout-out. I'm in Nashville, right? So I had meetings all day. I walked Broadway. I checked out Kid Rock's place. A lot happening. I can't believe how much is happening here on a Monday. I pulled into Posty's place, which is next door. I'm walking out, and I get noticed by Matt and Josh, two guys from Michigan. One's a Michigan fan. The other was Michigan State fan. And they were blowing me up and saying, how great the show is, how much they love Woodward Sports. So I promised them I'd do a shout out, and it was kind of, where's Dr. Pierce? I know we got a photo going up, but those guys were really inspiring me to get on these calls and making sure my story, because it was nice, and they were very respectful, and I just wanted to do a shout out to them. I know they're listening, so to Josh and Matt out there, peace out to you, dude.
Shout out, guys.
Shout
Appreciate
out.
y'all watching. All right, Doc, we'll catch you next week.